Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Stephanie Becker, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Hey, Paul, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what does it feel like to be at the Center of the Universe?
You know, it's different than I expected. I thought it was going to be a little bit hotter or something, but it's, it feels pretty good. I'll take it.
Right on. I'm guessing you didn't expect to see me and be talking to me at the Center of the Universe.
I did not know what to expect, so it's all a surprise.
All right, so you and I connected through Mark Johnson. How do you and Mark know each other?
Yeah, so Mark and I met a few years ago networking, and kind of has stayed in touch over the years. Run a local nonprofit that resonated with him, and I think he was always had an interest in kind of what we did. And then a few months ago, we reconnected, and he has now joined our board of directors and is just a really impactful part of delivering our mission. So it's been great. And he told me the other day, a week ago, that he had done this podcast and he'd really like to introduce me. And, I have a hard time saying no to stuff like that because I'm all about getting the word out for what we're doing.
Yeah, and I'm here to support all of that. So yeah, let's get into it. You just explained the story to me about how you got to where you are today with the nonprofit. But I want to listen to it again, and I want other people to hear that backstory.
Good. I hope it doesn't change. I try to keep it the same every time. So,
well, and by the way, I've never told the same story the same twice.
I feel like that's what I say too. I'm like, if you hear variations, just roll with it, okay? Because sometimes I feel like I need to spice it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, yeah, it's our story. It's my story, and it started in 2016. My husband and I have 3 kids. We have boy-girl twins that at the time were 7, and our younger son was 5-ish, 4.5. Of the twins, Jack was 7 at the time. He was our athlete, into everything, and started to get sick. And about 2 weeks into some just weird sickness, he was unable to walk, and just a lot of strange symptoms. I took him into the pediatrician. She did lab work, and within 24 hours, I got the phone call telling me that he needed to be rushed to the ER. His kidneys were in complete failure, it seemed. And I don't even know what that, I didn't even know what that meant, but, we loaded in the car, went down to Children's Hospital, and I didn't know how to process a lot of that, but they hooked him up very quickly. They realized, yes, his kidneys were not functioning, but they didn't know why. So we kind of went through testing, and very quickly they realized he had to go on dialysis just to get the kidneys working. And while they did surgery to put in a dialysis line, they did a biopsy of the kidneys. And what happened over the course of the next few days was just one of those things that you never are prepared for as a parent. You can't ever anticipate how you're going to react. But the doctors did not know why they were not functioning. We thought, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or some of these other sort of things that in my head, I could wrap my head around living with. And after surgery, the biopsy came back and they said, wasn't what we expected. And I'll be honest, they kind of beat around the bush, and I just looked at the doctor. I said, give it to me straight. What does your gut tell you is going on here? And she said, I think it's cancer. Oh. Man, they tell you you're not prepared for that. But as a parent, and I think as a human, you're never expected or you're never prepared to hear that word, especially in a child, and especially in a young child that's been healthy, his whole life. And I just, it took me a minute to wrap my head around that. And they did additional testing, and a day or 2 days later confirmed that it was lymphoblastic lymphoma of the kidneys. Both kidneys were completely infiltrated. It was stage 4, and that he would need to go on chemo immediately. And so we prepped for surgery, and within 2 days he had a port and had started a 3.5-year protocol for stage 4 cancer, which, just didn't know how to wrap my head around that one. And everything that they say happens. Your life turns upside down. Things freeze in that moment. But you do what you have to do. And that's kind of what we did. And shortly after our diagnosis, a local organization dropped off a bag in our hospital room. And they said, we're an organization that provides support to pediatric cancer patients and their families. And we thought, well, I guess if we're going to be in a club, this is the one to be in. Sure, we'll take it. And then shortly after that, another local nonprofit came up and said, we also do this too. We're here to support you. We know where you are. We get it. And we're here to help guide you through this process. And I think in that moment, I thought, I don't want to belong to these clubs, but I'm glad they're here. I shift the story and say now about that time, a friend of mine's son was getting sick. He was kind of bouncing from doctor to doctor. Later that summer, Jack was diagnosed in March. Later that summer in July, she found out that her son, also a twin, had a rare lung disease, less than 40 documented cases in the country. And we watched, their life turn upside down and not know kind of what next steps to take. But the difference, Paul, was that nobody came up to that family and said, hey, we're here to, support you. We get interstitial lung disease. We're here to walk this journey with you. Let us know how we can help, or these are the things that we can do for you. It didn't exist. And in that moment, that feeling of isolation and aloneness was just overwhelming for Liz and her family. And fortunately, she's well supported. But her resource was to go online and to do research. And, as we began we had this parallel journey of treating our kids down at Children's Hospital. The doctors down there put a protocol together for him to begin treating, his disease, which was non-curable. And Jack was in the HEMOC clinic, getting chemo regularly. And we just thought, this is crazy. How is it that we are a part of this community with so much support? And that Liz and her family had none. And the answer was because if you have a child with a well-known illness in Richmond, there are a lot of support systems in place. If your child does not have a well-known illness, if they're diagnosed with something that's rare or chronic, prior to Better Together, there was nothing that existed to support these families outside of their medical team. And we just kind of, after about 10 months, we looked at each other and we're like, this is crazy. How is it that something does not exist? We kind of did some due diligence, and that's how Better Together started. It felt like a call to action for me, because I could not imagine what our life would be like just 10 months into, treating Jack for cancer without the support system of these two nonprofits, without the community that we were now a part of, where I could go to events and people understood where we were, and it was okay to have had, not just a bad day, an awful week. Treatment was not going well, or we did not handle things well, and that was all okay in that space because we were among like families. We were all going through the trenches together, or in the trenches together, going through it, and everybody was at a different level. So there was this just incredible support system, along with the nonprofits that actually provided tangible support, things like, physical resources, gas and grocery gift cards, counseling if we needed it, activities, events. And it was incredible. And to think that Liz did not have access to that her family was just left to figure it out, did not feel right. And so we started Better Together with the desire to provide similar types of support to what our family was receiving, but for kids with rare and chronic illness, that had nowhere to turn, that we kept being told, no, you don't qualify because we don't do that disease, or you don't have what we support.
Yeah, and there used to be a phrase that was in my life, I don't know, a couple decades ago. We would say there are no bad dogs. Nobody means to not help.
Right.
Nobody wants to be that person or that organization, but they have their charter, they have their mission, they have their board that gives them direction. And so you're going to have gaps in any ecosystem, and you're filling one because that rare disease is as scary as the prevalent diseases, right?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. And to have no one to turn to before you started this organization in Richmond, I can't imagine being in that situation. And I'm very happy that you and your nonprofit are filling that gap. I have to ask this question because anyone listening to this now wants to know how Jack's doing these days.
I know I'm terrible about closing that loop. So next week on July 26th, we will celebrate 5 years of remission, which is super exciting. There is a milestone at 5 years. Every year you get a little bit more comfortable. 5 years is a big one. And we're lucky. His journey did end. It did have an end date where he is successfully in remission, living his best life. Very, very few, maybe one side effect from treatment, which, I don't consider ADHD. I feel like if kids don't have that today, then we aren't looking hard enough, because it feels like that's very common today, right? So to say that that's the worst thing that he has to deal with is not a bad gig at all. We're very lucky. But we also recognize that is a gift. The fact that treatment did end, because what we face with Better Together families are lifelong illnesses. And that's just a very different mentality. We always got to say July 26th is our end date. That is when our life will, go back to normal, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned ADHD, and you and I talked earlier. We both know that we have 3 kids apiece. I think ADHD is when you take an energetic child and try to have them sit down all day to learn.
Right.
I mean, no kidding.
Yeah.
They're going to act like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So how's Liz's son doing these days?
He's doing well. I think, considering he's got a non-curable disease, since then, their life has not been easy. He has acquired additional diagnoses, which is very common with medically complex kids. And that's what we call, the niche of kids that we support are medically complex. What that means is they typically have 5 or more specialists. Think about that. 5 or more specialists.
Insane.
That you regularly have to see. These illnesses usually affect multiple organ systems. So it's very common among families on this journey that, they might start off with 1 or 2 diagnoses and then they just add to them over time. And Ben has, but he's doing well. He's functioning. He's going to school. But their journey is not easy, and it's not over. They are continuing discovery for, additional issues and complications. And so that's the road that so many of our families on, and that's what we're here to support.
Yeah. So if there's a sick child in a significant way in the Richmond area, are we saying with Better Together that every kid has, and every family of that kid has a place to turn?
So that's a good question. And I want to be completely honest and transparent. Not necessarily. And what we recognize is that we can't be everything to everyone, in the way that, other organizations focus on one disease. They're disease specific. While we are not disease specific, our niche or our support is driven towards kids with medically complex. And the reason we do that, so we do have a qualification. They do need to see 5 or more specialists. If a child, comes to us, and we take every case separately, we look at it all differently. But we want to be more inclusive than exclusive. Our goal is to not say no, but at the same time, we are a limited, small nonprofit. And our goal is to really focus on these families who have children that are very complex in nature with their medical diagnoses, and we know how to help those families well. So if we do get an application for a family that may not qualify, we do say, hey, why did you apply? What is it that you need? And we do try to maybe fill some of those gaps, like let us connect you with this resource or provide this information. We don't turn people away without finding out how we can help in the interim.
Help in the interim and maybe connect them in ways that they wouldn't have connected otherwise.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest deficits of this population is just not knowing the resources out there. And so what we do and do well is have a pretty extensive database of information and resources. So we know where to look for all of these intricate needs, whether it's supplies, financial help, access to support services that technically they should have with Medicaid, but don't seem to be available. Sometimes it's just, is your child on Medicaid? And they've been told, no, we don't qualify, which is the biggest issue that so many of these families face, is the miscommunication about access to health care support for their child.
Yeah. So we'll use cancer as the example here. With that diagnoses, you had two nonprofits that were pretty quick to lend support, and that those organizations know exactly how they can support it. They know what they're up against. They know what the family's up against. For your nonprofit, every single case is unique.
Yeah, it truly is. They are. That's why for this population, medically complex, there's a national organization called NORD, and it's National Organization for Rare Diseases, and their sort of mascot, for lack of a better word, is a zebra. In case you did not know, no two zebras have the same stripe pattern. And so these are the zebras of our world. These are the kids that are zebras, and no two are alike. But what's cool is they don't have to be alike. They can have a very different diagnoses, but what we found is the journey is similar. What families have to go through in the way of supporting their child is similar. Feelings of isolation and being alone, and anxiety and fear and lack of support, lack of information, financial burdens. They're all the same, whether your child has, Russell-Silver syndrome or a mitochondrial disease. It all affects and in similar ways. It's just what we focus on is tell us more about who you are, what is your family dynamic, and what are the gaps in your support services. So how can we meet you where you are? And I think today that's a pretty unique skill set. That's probably not the right word, but so many people want to label, you fit into this box or this category, and we're not trying to do that. We're trying to meet the needs of our families where they are.
Yeah, I hesitate to ask this next question because it kind of, in a very general sense, breaks my heart to even ask it. Do you encounter a lot of death in what you're doing?
Yeah, a lot. No. Have we had children that have passed away? Absolutely. And that's not uncommon. Part of what we do as an organization is we are the non-medical partner to the complex care clinic down at Children's Hospital at VCU. This is a clinic that started about 3 years ago. It's the first of its kind in Virginia, which is super exciting. And they see the medically complex kid that is going from specialist to specialist, that has so much going on, so many categories of need for their little bodies. And they do experience, their data will show more deaths, certainly. Many of these illnesses, they will be lifelong, but they will probably to some degree be life limiting, meaning a shorter lifespan.
Yeah. So, that's that's tough for you and the folks that work for your nonprofit, right?
It is. Because we treat these families like they are family. It's a big blow, especially, to the clinic team when they have a family loss or a child pass away. It's very emotional. This is a really unique collection of people that work with these kids. And when they lose someone, it is devastating, as in ways you can imagine. No parent ever expects to have to lose a child, but the way these families battle day in and day out, and work so hard for their kids, health, and to try to stay healthy and to try to stay alive sometimes, and things happen, and it's utterly devastating as a community.
Yeah, but you're there for each other.
And that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the back-to-back questions that are a little awkward for me to ask, but I'm going to ask it in an awkward way intentionally. So if I have a child who just turned 18 and then gets a diagnosis that would fit for you, but my child is 18.
Yep.
And then I have another child 2 years later that's 17 years and 364 days when she's diagnosed, and I learn about you the same day, and they fit every other way, your criteria. You turn away the 18-year-old?
We refer them to organizations that work with 18 and older. So okay. We've formed relationships with other organizations that support adults that start at 18. We haven't had that exact scenario happen, but if we do get someone that's 17, again, our goal is to find out, why did you come to us? They came to us because of a reason. There's a need. And so our goal is to find out, what is that need? Can we connect you with the information and the resources that you need? Can we set you up on a course for success that will give you the supports that you need as you enter the realm of having an adult child with disabilities and with medical conditions? The reason we do that is not our area of expertise. When a child becomes an adult, things change, resources change, and it's very complicated. And so, Marketing 101 says, stay in your lane, do what you do well. And we do pediatrics well. So that's where we stay. But we do, some of the resources and information that we can provide are for any age, financial support, or I mentioned supplies. Sometimes supplies is hard to get, or getting on Medicaid. Those things are kind of universal, and anyone can access this. Or we just provide information. Look, if your child is on Medicaid, have you asked about this and this and this and this? And they're like, well, no, nobody told me about that. Okay, well, here's other information that maybe nobody told you. And sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes it's just providing the information that they don't know exists. Or resources that they don't know they have access to because nobody told them.
Yeah, back to the line at 18, lawmakers over time have just said, hey, we have to draw a line somewhere because adults are different than children. Yeah. So we're going to draw it at 18 for most things, and the U.S. is going to rally around the notion of 18 and older is different than 17 and younger. Right. Of course, we've drawn lines at the age of 21 for a handful of things, but sure. Adults and children are different, right? Prepubescent, clearly different than an adult. A child going through puberty is clearly different than a post-pubescent adult or even older child. And so, that all makes sense to me. And I probably would have gotten there on my own, but you sped up my understanding of why that line is there. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Because I was hoping you were saying, there's an adult version of what we do, or at least a compilation of resources. Is it as clean for adults as what you guys have done for kids?
It's more complicated, unfortunately, because, as you mentioned, our society has deemed 18 to be an adult. So it makes it so complicated if you have an adult child with disabilities, because then you're starting to talk about the rights of the adult, and then parents don't have the ability to do things on behalf of the child without signed waivers. But you could have an 18-year-old that is cognitively age 5. They can't make decisions. They can't, even tell lawmakers, this is, I want my parents to be in charge of me, or sign waivers. And so it really is complicated. Our society has not done a good job by adult children with disabilities, and it can be very difficult. Now, there are organizations that do support it, support these kids and families. but just not in the way that we do from our understanding.
Yeah, and you and I as parents know that especially boys don't fully, their frontal lobe doesn't fully form until around the age of 25, and so
Right.
yeah, they do need adults providing them, adults that unconditionally care about them, providing them guidance. But there's nothing that they have to adhere to anything that the parent's saying.
But I will say, part of what we do as our kids age is that we give them the resources, we give the parents the resources to prepare for that transition. There are ways to provide, it's not called a trust fund, but there's mechanisms of financial support that families can begin to put into place that will support that child as they age. We provide education that gets the parent ready for that transition and the things that they need to be thinking about, notifying doctors, notifying healthcare administration, insurance, all of these things that they can do ahead of time that make that transition process easier.
So the core of what Better Together does, it sounds like you guys are doing amazing work, but you're also super thoughtful about bridges for people that maybe don't fit into your criteria. It's amazing. So Stephanie, the huge question for me is, where does your giant heart come from?
Well, I think it's experience with, I can't reiterate enough what it feels like to have a child with a super serious diagnosis and that instant feeling of being so alone that you don't know how you're going to take the next step forward. And cancer is common. We know it, we understand it, we get what a bald head usually means, but yet I will never forget the feeling of when they said, yes, we're confirming Jack has, this diagnosis, Jack has cancer. I felt like the only mom in the world who'd ever been told their child had cancer. I instantly felt like nobody understands. My parents don't understand. My husband's, I felt like we were completely alone. And I think as humans, we innately crave connection with one another. We crave understanding among each other. And what I felt like more than anything as we started that, what I call the cancer journey, is it's almost unexplainable to relate to someone in such a unique way where at one point you felt alone and then someone can look at you and say, oh yeah, we were there too. It was the work, that relatability, that commonality, someone to just say, I know where you are and I've been there. It serves our mental and emotional capacities in ways that are just, I don't know how to explain it. And I honestly, it's a feeling I'd never had before. And it was the worst feeling of my life. And I couldn't imagine anyone else feeling that way when I realized there was something I could do about that. If I could stop one person from having to feel like they did not know how they were going to take their next step forward, and to be understood and to be supported and just said, we're your net, we're here for you. Then I wanted to do that. I was driven to do that. And I get up every day and that's what I think about, is, even if children are born, we get a lot of NICU referrals. These parents think they have healthy babies coming and they get through, a great pregnancy and delivery. And then, oh my gosh, the shocking news that their child's heart did not develop properly. Their lungs are not at capacity. Their, systems are not functioning as they need to, and interventions have to be made. And their life is going to look very different than what they planned out for, 9 months. Can we be there to say, this is scary and it's not what you envisioned, but we can help you get through this. And I'm driven by that and continue to be driven by that.
You are the living embodiment of the phrase, it's better to give than receive.
Well, that's very nice. But I think I learned it because so many gave to us. We were so supported. We had a network, both the nonprofits I talked about, but even our family and friend network. There were people that brought us meals that I'd never met. I had no idea who they were. There were people praying for us along prayer chains around the city. I had no idea, and we'll never know. But I credit that support of people that don't know us, don't know our story, but rallied around the belief that support is meaningful and it can change lives. And so they did it. They did it. So I got to tell you, I started a nonprofit, but I'm also the first one that'll sign up for, a meal train when somebody needs help, because it's just, sometimes it's the people stepping up that you don't know, that make the most meaningful difference.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to get into some rant about media here, but I think we tend to forget that there are so many giving, quiet, supportive people that are all around us, but we're just not making a lot of noise about it because it doesn't get advertising money on TV to tell those stories.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, this can be a hard topic. Cancer is hard to talk about, but you see a kid in a wheelchair with a trach coming out of their throat. I mean, that doesn't give you the warm fuzzies the way puppies do, and, babies, or even, kids that are bald, but they have a smile on their face. What we do is not pretty. These kids often seeing these kids can dial into a parent's biggest fears. And that can be really hard for our society to face, that being the reality of a lot of our kids.
Do you mind sharing the story of your daughter and how that relates?
Yeah. So Jack went into remission in 2019. In July, we had about a year of what we like to call normal, where we could say yes to him and you get to do this. And then that's following summer. No, a couple years later, not the following summer. It was a couple years later. We picked up our daughter. COVID hit in 2020, right? So everybody was locked down. We weren't the only ones that were worried about, germs and everything like that. So we kind of had 2 more years tacked on of masking. And I mean, we'd been doing that for years when Jack was in treatment. So I sort of laugh about COVID. Masking was not weird to us. We did it.
It was weird to 99.9% of humanity.
Right. We weren't used to being able to go to Target when his counts were low and things like that. So, COVID was a different experience for us. But once we all came out of that and it was like, okay, things are opening up again. We picked our daughter up from camp. She is a camp lover. She'd been there for a month. We picked her up and she did not look like we dropped her off. She had very, very dark skin, very dark skin. If you can tell, I'm lily white. And while she has my husband's skin tone, he is not that dark. She looked very different, and I just didn't feel good about it. I texted our pediatrician, who is fantastic, and we brought her in for lab work. And I got a similar call where she told me to sit down, and she suspected that Ellie had a disease called Addison's disease, where her adrenal glands don't work. Well, I'd never heard of that. And then she did get us, she was able to get us an appointment with an endocrinologist a few days later. And we walk in there and the doctor came in and started talking about labs and what her lab work was telling us about what was going on in Ellie's body. And she looked at me and she said, "Mom, you narrowly escaped the ICU with this kid. Her organs were about to go into failure." And I looked at her and I'm like, "What are you even talking about?" I don't even know what Addison's disease is. And she started to explain it. And it's a serious and rare condition in which the adrenal glands don't work. And I won't go into all the details, but it's a life-altering disease where she'll have to take medication for the rest of her life. She has a couple other diagnoses. And I remember sitting there and I just looked at her, and she didn't know who I was. She didn't know our medical history with our family. And I just wanted to say, I don't think so. I don't think that I'm not ready for this. I am not interested in this. We did our turn. We've had 3.5 years of treatment. Like, you got to be kidding. But because I didn't understand what the disease was, I sort of thought, okay, well, it's not that big of a deal. And she looked at me and she goes, no, you're going to be here for another hour to hour and a half while I explain to you exactly what this means for Ellie and your family. And I just sat there in shock. I left that office, and this time I really did feel alone because I'd never heard of Addison's disease. I'd never heard of, I'd heard of Hashimoto's, which is thyroid. I didn't know anybody with it. I didn't know what that meant. All I knew is I left with a protocol for how we were going to keep Ellie alive and not to go into adrenal crisis, which would land us in the ER. And I thought, what am I going to do now? Because I don't know anyone that can help us outside of this doctor. And I really don't think she's prepared for the 99 questions I have coming in the next 5 minutes. And so for the first time, and this is what I told you, I tell that story and I say, when people say, why did you start Better Together? And I say, because I can't imagine what it would feel like to have a child diagnosed with something that's scary and life-threatening and not have a support system. Well, guess what? Now I know. And that's exactly what happened on that day. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know what these families feel like, and it's gut-wrenching. Like, you just feel deflated as a parent. Like, I don't even begin to know. Yes, I have this protocol and we're going to go fill all these medications and we're going to put you on a schedule to take them, and we're going to have to wake you up to give you medication. But how does our life work now? Like, how does my husband go back to his job? How does she play with friends? How does she go to school? And that was really the biggest eye opener for me, was to experience what our families experience when they get that diagnosis and they look at the doctor and say, what in the world is that? Is it serious? What does that mean for our family?
Yeah, you are certainly uniquely positioned to be running your own.
Right? I accidentally fell into my qualifications, I guess.
I mean, what a horrific path that you and your family have gone through to get to where you are today. But it doesn't change the fact that you are uniquely positioned to do what you do. How's your daughter doing these days?
She is great. She is fantastic. She is 17. And so we are in that interesting position, actually, where we are beginning to, and we have been for over a year now, just really trying to transition like ownership. You've got to own being on top of your medication, taking it on time, because she wants independence. She wanted independence at 13 when she was diagnosed. And I think the difference is when Jack was diagnosed, he was young, at 7, he turned 8 a month after he was diagnosed. I mean, we're still mainly in charge of his life and his decisions and things like that. By the time you're 13, 14, 15, you're making your own decisions about, where you go and who you're friends with and what you guys do. And that's been really hard, navigating the teen years of, I know you want to be independent, but you really have to adhere to taking your medication and taking it on time and staying hydrated. And, those are Ellie's situations. But I think more than anything, it has given me perspective. And I can never be, let me phrase it differently. I'm so grateful to have the perspective I do now when I talk to people. And I don't get it right all the time, but I feel like a lot of people don't recognize kind of what's important in life and some of the big things until they're a lot older. And I can look at things now and say, that's not a big deal. That is not a big deal. As a parent, as a friend, as a community member, like, these are the little things in life. Like, let's focus on saying yes when we can and remember, what really matters in the scheme of things.
You're saying Ellie wanted to be independent. That coincided with her diagnosis, but I'm a father of 2 daughters. I'm pretty sure they're around 7 or 8 when they really start to want daughters
Right.
in particular.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can imagine telling a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, and I do joke about that because part of Addison's disease is really being in tune with your body to understand, kind of when you're going down a hill and maybe need additional medication or need to do something differently, take something, eat something, drink something, whatever, for your body to right itself, so to speak. And I joke, I'm like, what 13-year-old girl knows their body well enough to say, oh, this doesn't feel right, I better do X, Y, Z. Most women will laugh and say, yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten there. And, we kind of have a chuckle about that. But yeah, I mean, autonomy and the biggest thing for Ellie at 13, they all want to be the same. They don't want to be different. Literally, they want to be clones of each other, and nobody, eventually they want to stand out, for their unique talents and skills and, personalities. But at 13, they all want to be the same. And what did we do to her? We said, oh no, you're very different. You have to live very differently. You have to behave very differently because of these diseases. And that was really hard.
All three of the cases or situations we've talked about are twins.
Isn't that interesting?
Is there something to being a twin?
I would love to know. I hope someone's researching that because I have noticed, having been a part of a Moms of Multiples group, there's an eerie number of twins that have had medical complications. And I do find that fascinating. I am not probably qualified to say whether that's true or not. I just think it's very interesting, quite frankly.
I'm going to go completely from left field with this next question. Did you play sports in high school?
I did.
What'd you play?
I played in high school. I played field hockey and lacrosse.
Did you have an arch rival?
Oh, yes.
Who was your arch rival?
St. Catherine's.
I mentioned that
because you know that.
I do know that, and I'm bringing it up because I want to highlight the fact that where you went to high school, Collegiate is my arch rival. Has been for a really long time, and it's especially painful because most of the times we played them, Collegiate won. Almost indifferent to the sport. It seemed like we lost 70% of the time.
Well, I'll say St. Chris is even the playing fields a little bit. They give us a run. My kids go to Collegiate now, and they give us a run for their money. St. Catherine's and St. Chris are a force to be reckoned with, I will tell you. Yeah,
I think there's some light recruiting that happens in private schools these days that maybe weren't happening back in the day.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. Some private schools actually, I believe there is some heavy recruiting taking place for sure.
Maybe some money changing hands, but we won't say any names.
I will not say a word to that.
So field hockey and lacrosse, they're very similar sports.
They are. Lots of running.
Yeah.
And hand-to-eye coordination.
And like constant motion, right?
Yeah.
It's not like baseball where you have to wait for the pitcher to throw the ball, or football where there's a whistle at the end of every play. You're constantly moving.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. But, I think one of the things I loved more than anything was being on a team and the camaraderie of a team and, getting on the bus for away games. And, I just loved that. But I could not play basketball to save my life. I tried it 1 year and we all agreed, nope, just walk away. Walk away. Do not come back.
What was different about basketball?
I don't know. Same with soccer. My brother was excellent. He ended up playing Division I soccer, and I'm like, oh, that must make me, good at soccer too. No. They were like, that's the door.
So hand-eye coordination with an instrument or a piece of equipment was your thing, but directly touching the ball in basketball or soccer, not so much.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's funny. That's
funny. I know.
Yeah, there's some people on earth that can do anything because they're just coordinated in every way imaginable physically. And then
for sure.
But most people aren't coordinated across every possible endeavor.
No, I swam when I was younger. And I did that well, but I got to the point where I'll never forget. As you aged up, and it was the end of middle school, and they wanted you to start coming. This is aging me, Paul. So this was back when having a morning practice was like a newish thing, where you'd go to a morning practice and an evening practice. And keep a journal of your goals and what you were going to accomplish that week in practice, and your long-term goals, your short-term goals. And I just want to swim. Like, can't I just dive off the block and swim and go to practice? So it kind of got too intense for me. And then I switched over to field sports, which I ended up just loving. They're just so much fun.
You said in high school, when you said field hockey and lacrosse, did you play at the collegiate level too?
No, I wasn't good enough for that. I was good enough to play. I started, on varsity and things like that, but I was not interested in the student athlete role of college. I wanted I wasn't good enough, quite frankly, but I saw that it looked like a very different route, and I loved the idea of experiencing all aspects of college.
Yeah, that's where my brain went to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sports are fun, but there are other things that you can do.
No. I thought there was probably, a lot of things to experience, and I didn't love the idea of being hung up on a field or, in a gym or a locker room for so much of it. And I'm not saying that's the experience today. I don't know. I didn't do it, but I just knew that path looked different than maybe what I wanted for college.
Fair enough. This is what we're doing right now, recording this conversation, and wherever it goes. Some of it is about posterity for me. So is there a story that when your kids are maybe 15 years older than they are now, that they'll love that you told on this? And I'm certainly not looking for anything embarrassing, but just a fun story from your childhood that they don't know today. It's a weird question. If you don't have an answer right away, I'll understand.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one, Paul. You gave me no preparation on that.
None. So don't answer it now if you think
there is a funny one. No, there is a funny one.
Right, good.
I'm obviously female, and I'm a part of the Parents Association at school, and the head of the Parents Association was trying to do like a get to know you, at our first meeting of the year, and it's all women. And she said, tell your worst hair story. Well, every female has a worst hair story. And I grew up, when I was younger, I looked like Annie, literally. I had short, curly, red hair. It's more gray now. Anyway, so as I got older, my mom did not know what to do with it. And it was like super, super curly. And I always kept it short, and I always wanted long hair because you want what you can't have, right? And I'll never forget, I was driven. I'm like, you've got to find a way to pull some of this curl out. And so we went to a ethnic salon, like in a part of town we'd not been in before. And they did a reverse perm.
I've never heard of that.
Rightfully so. There's a reason why no one hears about that. I came out of there and my hair was straight, and there was like burns on my scalp because and part of my hair was straight. Part of it had gotten singed and fallen off. I looked like a train wreck.
You look like you've been part of an explosion, maybe.
Oh my God. I don't think they'd ever done it before. They're like, well, if you can make your hair curly by doing this, what if we just reverse the steps? And I want to be like, you clearly failed chemistry. What did you just do? So it's this huge story, and we laugh about it now. I cried for days. But it was hilarious. And so when people talk about getting perms and all of this stuff, and doing stuff to their hair. I've never, after that, I did do like hair relaxers because that became a thing. But I looked like a cat that had put their paw in a socket. I mean, it was unbelievable. And my daughter just talks about her hair woes. And I'm like, no, you got nothing.
Do you think that particular reverse perm was the only time it's been attempted in human history?
I mean, no one else I knew had ever done anything like that. I don't think they ever did anything like that. It wasn't long after that. It was a few years later they came out with the concept of a relaxer, right? Which is the concept I was going for. I don't know. I was definitely a guinea pig and I got burned, literally and figuratively. Yeah, it was legit. I mean,
skin and hair.
It was. Yeah, it was like I had they had burned my hair. I mean, it was hilarious. It's hilarious now, but oh man.
How old were you when that happened?
I was late middle school.
Oh, the worst.
I mean, could not have been worse timing. Could not have been worse timing. I think I might not have gone to school the next day. I think my mom actually let me stay home from school. She's like, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's your mom that was behind taking you there, right?
She was trying to be helpful. You know, I complained a lot about curly hair because, you know, all my friends had straight hair and she was trying to be helpful. I was so mad. Yeah, we were not friends for a while.
How long did it take for your hair to get back to normal?
I don't know. I blocked it out.
Wow.
Like I have no recollection of that period of time. I don't know. I'll have to ask her actually because it just went so sideways and it took years to grow it out and it was bad. Years. It took years for it to actually, you know, like a year to grow all that hair out. And
were kids mean to you when you went back to school?
Yeah.
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 Kids can be rough.
They are not nice. Middle school is rough. It is a rough time. But I will say the benefit of collegiate in middle school is it's all girls and all boys. So they separate you. So that made it a little bit better is that I was just with girls. And I mean, people will say girls are really mean and they can be, but it's better than being so humiliated in front of a room full of like boys, you know? Oh my gosh, that would be so bad.
Boys are more obvious in their meanness, typically.
They can be, but
yeah.
All was right by high school. I was good to go. Had my hair under control. That's kind of a female story, but you know, I don't know if that's what you were looking for. I just remember when you talk about stories, that stood out.
I'm happy that you answered the way you did, and any story you had shared would have been good by me.
Do you have one?
A hair story?
No, like your story, your impactful story.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're the second person out of like 300 that have turned it around and asked me questions about me, and I wasn't prepared the first time either. He's a friend of mine.
Come up with one since then?
He's a really good friend of mine, and I just looked at him and said, "We're not going to do this today. I'm asking you the questions. You're not asking me the question." But
okay.
You and I just met, so I'm going to give some sincere thought here. Yeah, a lot of them are politically incorrect. I can't say in 2025.
I know that's kind of a bummer, right? I would love to hear them, but I get where you're coming from.
I mean, I'll gladly share the one that just popped in my head off recording.
Yeah. Oh, well, then definitely, yes.
I will not share it on this recording. Give me a couple minutes to think about it. But while I'm thinking about it, and I'm also going to listen to your answer to this, Better Together, what are you guys looking at doing over the next year or two? Or is it just you do what you do and you just try to get better at what you're doing?
That's a good question. I imagine there would be organizations that do that. No, what we know is this population that we support, these medically complex kids, you might not know this. That was my nice way of saying you don't know this. There are over 3,000 children in Richmond alone, in Metro Richmond, that have a medically complex illness. Like,
Wow.
is that not staggering to you?
That's crazy to me.
So I think the last I heard, cancer, maybe one diagnosis a week, something like that, which is a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Their numbers are nothing like this medically complex population. And the reason we don't know that is because it's very hard to put medically complex kids in, one category, right? Because we talked about how different they each are. So it's hard to say, where do you draw the line on who goes into this category. So metrics are not great. What we know is how many kids are treated at the Children's Hospital of Richmond downtown that have medically complex illnesses, or 5 or more specialists, and the numbers are staggering. So when I know that there are so many families out there that need support, I'm not content to say we're good with where we are. We have, upwards of 75 families that we support. That is not even the tip of the iceberg. So we're trying to continually find ways to meet parents' needs, meet families' needs, meet the kids' needs where they are, and they change over time. So one of the things that we're doing right now, we have our very first giving campaign. There's 2 weeks left. It ends July 31st. And we're raising money specifically to launch 2 new programs. One is a sibling program designed to support siblings of kids with rare and chronic illness, and a dad's program. Because one of the things that Mark Johnson and I talked about when we kind of reconnected a couple of months ago, and I know he shared with you his son Alex diagnosis and their journey with a medically complex child, was the isolation that a dad feels. And he and I really talked about that, and it just brought so much to light about how different a dad's journey is than a mom's journey, having a sick kid, and the different roles that both have and how they play out emotionally, and just the innate nature of men and how they process information and ask for help or don't ask for help, things like that. And we also, there's a ton of data out there supporting how difficult and the negative effect of being a sibling of a child with medical complexity is. It's not positive news, on what these siblings kind of go through when the sole focus is on the sick child and the family dynamic revolves around the sick child, and the parent's attention and bandwidth is really focused on that sick child. There's a lot mentally and emotionally that go on for those siblings. So these 2 new programs we have found both are relevant, but our families are asking for them. And they said, we need support in these areas. So we have 2 more weeks to raise about $14,000 to hit our goal, so that we can launch these 2 new programs. So
how do folks donate? They go to your website?
They can go to our website. There's a donate button. Should be a purple box, or it should be all over the screen, but bettertogetherrva.org is our website. And every nonprofit will say this, and we mean it just the way others do, is every little bit matters. Every donation counts. And, that's kind of where we are now, is launching these 2 new programs. But our goal over the next year or 2 is to really just take on more families, grow our bandwidth of support, both in numbers of families, and then the scope of how we reach them, and the depth of what we can offer them. So the other area that we're focused on next year is additional mental health and self-care support for the caregiver. This year we held our first, we called it a kids camp and a parent mini retreat, and it went great. In fact, I didn't think the parents were going to leave, Paul. I was kind of like, okay, but their kids were across the hall. They were well taken care of. They were safe. We did yoga, we did massages, we did craft activities. We had conversation, discussion. They got lunch. I could see why they didn't want to leave, but we want to do more of those kinds of things to really support and nurture those caregivers.
It was adult camp.
It's exactly. I know.
Who wouldn't enjoy adult camp?
If I could do adult camp like the way we did that for 3 hours, oh man, sign me up. Like, take me away. I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to come back to you asking me the question about did I have something like that. And I can't give a good answer, but I will give you a quick hair story. My youngest kid, somehow, I think she actually goes to my parents' house and finds pictures that I think we all forgot existed. And she found one with me. I'm wearing, I was born in 1968, so people can do the math on my age. At some point in my preteen, maybe I think I was 12, so I was not quite a teenager yet. I thought it was cool to wear short shorts, which a lot of boys did back then. I also thought it was cool to have a cutoff shirt. That was a thing when I was 12.
Oh, yeah.
Which hasn't come back, thank goodness, for young boys. And I was sporting a mullet. And I thought that was cool. And I'll remind you, Stephanie, even though I'm a St. Christopher's guy, I grew up in Hanover County, and I think there were a few mullets running around.
There still are. Do you know the mullet has actually come back? Paul, that's hilarious. And you know what you remind me of? I'm guessing you were a fan of the movie Footloose.
I mean, who doesn't like the movie Footloose?
Yeah, I still remember. Or no, was it Footloose or Karate Kid? The guy with the blonde hair in Karate Kid, he has the cutoff shirt and the short shorts.
Yeah, that's right.
That was you.
Johnny. I was trying to be Johnny.
Johnny. That's exactly. Yes, thank you.
Johnny with brown hair is what I was going for. Yeah.
That is priceless. And did they find pictures of you? They found pictures of you wearing it?
My daughters found all kinds of embarrassing pictures.
Is it on social media?
Absolutely not. I told her really bad things will come her way if she.
I figured threats were involved for sure.
Yes, there's no question. Well, cool. Hey, if people want to learn more about you, your website sounds like the place to go.
That would be it. Yeah, it's Better Together, and we are Better the number 2 Together RVA.org.
So not TO, but the number 2.
Number 2.
And it's RVA because Better Together could imply a lot of different things, right?
It does, and it's interesting. There's a new, who sings that country song that came out like a year or two ago that's, talks about Better Together. There's a commercial, a national organization, their marketing, motto a couple of years ago was Better Together. I was like, well, I guess we're, on the hot train for that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's more of a general concept. We fully believe in working as a group, and greater things can happen when we work together and collaborate than if we try to go it alone. And we really believe that.
Yeah, the team sport comment you made earlier, I'll just get this out there. Individual sports teach kids a lot of things.
Sure.
Team sports to me are just so much more fun and rewarding.
Well, they are. And I think I watch, my kids play team sports. And there is so much that you learn. And I love how in the right environment, you get the right coaches. They're not talking about the sport or the training or the footwork or the, how to make a goal or blah, blah, blah. It's how you treat each other and, how you lead by example and how you support one another. And the first is last and the last, and it's really these life lessons that take place in a team environment where, you're as strong as the weakest link. So let's make your weakest link, and I just love those lessons that I think some coaches are doing a really good job of reinforcing about it takes everyone together. And it's the water person, it's the stats guy on the side, it's the, what do you call it? The equipment manager. I mean, everybody is important to a team. You miss one and you don't have anything to play in. You don't have anything to drink. You don't, and it's just, I love them seeing that early on, that there's not a lot that will happen when you go it alone, when you're by yourself. Now, that's not said, like swimming is kind of a singular sport in some ways, but, I love team activities. I just think they're great learning opportunities. Plus, there is a lot of fun to be had on a team.
Yeah, your lesson point is well taken. It'll apply. Those lessons will apply the rest of your kids' lives and my kids' lives. And it's funny. I was in corporate America for a long time, and whenever I'd run into somebody that just didn't play well with others, I would say, "Yeah, that guy or gal never played team sports."
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it could be true. It could be true. For sure.
It's highly likely true in most cases. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, hey, this has been fun, Stephanie. I'm glad Mark connected us. I'm glad you were willing to do this. I love hearing your story that led you to Better Together. I'm glad you guys are doing meaningful and powerful things in the community.
Thank you. It's great to talk to you. Great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to end the recording now, and then I'm going to tell you that story that I wouldn't tell on the recording.
Oh, I'm so glad. This is going to be good. Thanks so much, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.